Welcome back to The Explainer. So, today we are diving into some source material covering a topic that literally makes or breaks careers: project management interviews. Instead of just rehashing dry textbook theory, we're going to look at how this material transforms the standard 7-stage project lifecycle into a really dynamic strategic map, one you can use to completely ace your next interview.
Let's jump right in with this classic trap question. How do you kick off a new project? Man, this one trips up so many talented candidates. It sounds like a casual invitation to talk about spreadsheets, right? But it's a trap. Interviewers use this exact question to figure out if you're just a tactical taskmaster or a true strategic delivery leader. Today, we're going to use our source material to show you exactly how to prove you're the latter.
Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. First up, the connected project story. Then, initiation and project planning, followed by execution and active monitoring. After that, we'll tackle managing scope and recovery, and finally, defining true project success.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the connected project story.
So, you've got these 7 stages, right? Initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, managing scope, recovery, and closure. But the crucial takeaway is that they're really just one connected story. When you're sitting in that interview chair, the questions might sound simple, but they're testing something deep. They want to see if you can connect strategy to planning, execution to people, and risk to outcomes. They definitely don't want to hear about these stages in a vacuum. You've got to show them you understand how a single decision made during planning sends ripples all the way through execution and monitoring.
Moving right along to Section 2, Initiation and Project Planning, where you absolutely have to set the direction first. Remember that interview trap question I mentioned a minute ago? Well, here is your bulletproof answer. You must set the direction before you plan a single task. We're talking key outputs here: a project charter, stakeholder identification, initial scope, objectives, governance structure, and a high-level roadmap. Like, if you start rambling about creating a work breakdown structure before you even know who the stakeholders are, you've already lost the room. Anchor your answer in these outputs to prove you understand the why and the who long before you get to the how.
Okay, so once your direction is crystal clear, you step into the planning stage. This is where you break that massive scope down into bite-sized pieces through a very precise sequence. First, define the scope and acceptance criteria. 2, create milestones. 3, identify dependencies. 4, estimate the effort. 5, build the actual plan. 6, define the risks. And 7, establish governance. Rattle those 7 steps off in order during an interview, and you'll instantly prove your planning is methodical, predictable, and totally solid.
Which brings us to Section 3, Execution and Active Monitoring, or Delivery in Motion.
Look, execution isn't just mindlessly checking off tasks, it is a continuous living cycle. Think about it. People drive the progress, which inevitably uncovers risks. Those risks impact dependencies, which force decisions, and those decisions have to be communicated back to the stakeholders. It's a constant rhythm. If any single link in that chain snaps, the whole project stalls out. When they ask you about managing day-to-day delivery, describe this cycle. Show them you know project management is a breathing ecosystem.
And to keep that rhythm going smoothly, you really need to nail 4 critical behaviors. Real-time tracking gives you actual visibility. Clear ownership means every single action has a specific name attached to it. 0 ambiguity. Timely escalation is absolutely huge. You escalate when you actually have time to fix the problem, not when the building is already on fire. And finally, proactive communication. Tell them before they even have to ask. These aren't just corporate buzzwords, these are the actual habits that separate top-tier managers from everyone else.
This flows perfectly into monitoring and control. A green status does not just mean tasks are done. A real pulse check requires a 360-degree view. You aren't just watching the schedule and budget. You're tracking scope changes, risks, dependencies, resource capacity, quality, and, super importantly, stakeholder feedback. If an interviewer asks how you track project health, listing off a few of these indicators proves you have that holistic, big-picture view.
Of course, things will eventually go off the rails, which leads us to Section 4, Managing Scope and Recovery.
Scope creep. Just hearing those 2 words is enough to give a project manager hives, right? But honestly, you can transform that abstract fear into a highly manageable, controlled process. The answer to a change request isn't always a flat no. First, you understand the request. Second, assess the impact. Third, prioritize it against current work. Fourth, review it with stakeholders. Fifth, get a formal approval or rejection. And sixth, update the plan. Memorize this framework. It shows you're flexible but fiercely protective of your project.
Let me just emphasize step 2 for a second, assessing the impact. Every single change needs complete, transparent visibility across 5 key areas. How does this affect the timeline, the cost, the resources, our external dependencies, and our final delivery commitments? You literally cannot agree to add a new feature without showing stakeholders exactly what it's going to cost them across those 5 metrics. That is how you manage scope like a pro.
But what happens when things go really wrong? We enter the recovery phase. I absolutely love this quote. If a project is behind schedule, the first step is always understanding why. It sounds so simple, but when a project is failing, human nature kicks in and we just want to panic and work 80-hour weeks. Interviewers want to see you hit the brakes. Are you dealing with a dependency issue or a resource constraint? Diagnose the root cause before you start prescribing medicine.
Once you know the why, you can roll out the how. These are your strategic recovery levers. You can execute a reprioritization of features. You can run parallel activities, which is often called fast-tracking. You can make resource adjustments, like crashing the schedule. You can focus on targeted dependency resolution, or, worst-case scenario, you do a timeline rebaselining. If you're in the hot seat and they ask, hey, your project is 2 months late, what do? Bam, you confidently lay out these exact options. And that brings us to our final stretch, Section 5, Defining True Project Success. This right here is where we separate the average candidates from the phenomenal ones. The standard definition of success is just hitting the iron triangle, on time, on budget, on scope. That's fine, but true success, that's about delivering value, maintaining quality, building stakeholder confidence, and fostering organizational growth. An average project manager just checks boxes. A great delivery leader makes absolutely sure the business is genuinely better off than when it started. Let's zoom in on those 4 strategic pillars. Value means the expected business outcome actually happened. The shiny new software actually solved the user's problem. Quality means standards were maintained, not thrown out the window to hit an arbitrary deadline. Confidence means your stakeholders walked away actually trusting you and your process. And growth means the organization itself leveled up and is more capable than before. Now that is the ultimate sign-off. Let's tie this entire connected story together with one fundamental idea from the text. Project management is ultimately about turning an objective into a measurable outcome. Yes, you're managing people, priorities, risks, and changes, but your true North Star, it's taking a totally abstract business goal and making it real, making it measurable. That's the real magic of mastering this complete life cycle.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'll leave you with one final thought to chew on before your next big interview. Are you just managing tasks, or are you delivering value? If you adopt the 7-stage connected mindset we just walked through, the answer is definitely going to be the latter. Thanks so much for joining me on the explainer today. Keep learning, and I'll see you in the next one.